video is about equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions are two different fractions that name the same amount. So let's look at two fractions here. Let's look at 2/8 equals to 1/4. I have 8 circles over here. We know that the denominator tells me how many it takes to make a whole. So I have 8 here, and I'm talking about 2 of those. So if I talk about these two, then I'm talking about 2/8. So let's look over here. 1/4, the denominator tells me that it takes 4 to make the whole, but I have 8. How can I put those into 4 equal groups? Well, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So if I put those 2 in a group, then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. And if I'm talking about 1/4 of the whole, this is 1, there's 2, 3, 4. So if I'm talking about one of those, I'm talking about this group. And you can see that over here I colored 2 circles, and over here I colored 2 circles. So 2/8 is equivalent to 1/4. Now this is important. To find equivalent fractions, all you have to do is multiply the numerator, that's the number on the top, and the denominator, the number on the bottom, by the same number. However, you cannot use 0 because 0 isn't equivalent to anything but 0. So you can't use 0, but you can pick any other number and you use that number and you multiply your numerator and your denominator and you'll find an equivalent fraction. So let's try 3. If I have 4/6 and I want to find an equivalent fraction, I'm going to try 3. So this tells me 4/6 is equal to 4 times 3 and 6 times 3. So you see where I've taken the 3, I've multiplied my numerator times 3 and my denominator times 3. Well, if I work this out, 4 times 3 is 12 and 6 times 3 is 18. So what this tells me is that 4/6 is equivalent to 12/18. These two fractions are equivalent. 4/6 is equivalent to 12/18. So it's that simple. So if you're trying to find the equivalent fraction, pick a number and multiply your numerator and your denominator, and what you get here in the fraction is equal. Equivalent fractions can also be written for whole numbers. Sometimes we work with whole numbers and we turn them back into fractions. So if my whole number is 1, the fraction for 1 is 1/1, because anytime your numerator and your denominator are the same, we know that that fraction equals 1. So 1 equals 1/1. And if I'm looking for an equivalent fraction, let's say I decided to multiply by 2. I'm going to multiply my numerator and my denominator by 2, and when I do that, I get 2/2, and we know that 2/2 is 1. So 1 is equivalent to 2/2. 2/2 is equivalent to 1. Alright, so let's try the whole number 3. To make the whole number 3 a fraction, I'm going to do 3/1. Because this is the fraction for 3. And let's pick a number. We're going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. And let's do 5. If I do 3 times 5, and I do 1 times 5, if I multiply that out, I'll find that in my new numerator, 3 times 5 is 15, and 1 times 5 is 5. Excuse me. So 15 fifths is equivalent to 3 over 1, which is the whole number 3. And we know that if we divide 15 by 5, we're going to get 3. So we can see how all of these numbers, how 3 over 1 is equivalent to 15 over 5. Another way that you can find equivalent fractions is by using a number line and seeing how the numbers line up on the number line. So my top number line has been divided into thirds. I have 0, 1/3, 2/3, 3/3. Well, we know 3/3 is 1. So this is the space between 0 and 1, and that's where fractions fall because they're less than 1. Okay, on my next number line, I've divided this number line into 6. And I have 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, 6/6. And we know that 6/6 is equal to 1. When your numerator and denominator are the same, that's 1. Well, if that's a third, that's a third, that's a third, from here to here on my number line is a third, but an equivalent fraction is 2/6. So you'll see I have my spaces here are equivalent to these spaces here. 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, it is the 1/3 up here. 4/6 to 5/6 to 6/6 is the same as the 1/3 up here. Now my bottom number line, I've divided up my spaces into twelfths. So I have 12 between 0 and 1, or 12 over 12 is 1. And the spaces in here line up. So we can see that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. 2/6 is equivalent to 4/12. So 1/3 is equivalent to 4/12. If we look at 2/3, we can see that 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. 4/6 is equivalent to 8/12. So 8/12 is equivalent to 2/3. So you can use a number line to help you line up your fractions so that you can find the ones that are equivalent. So here are a few that I would like for you to put in your notes and give it a try, and then come tomorrow and let me know if you have any questions. So remember to write down your questions. Number 1 is 2/8. Number 2, 3/5. Number 3, 5/6. And number 4, 2/3. Pick a number, multiply your numerator and your denominator by the same number, and you will get an equivalent fraction.